It seemed like God was right there saying, are you done yet? Are you going to do it my way? Until finally the last time, he said, what are you going to do now? And I said, whatever you want me to do. I'm done. And that was it.
That I no longer go with my hand out, that I'm able to actually meet needs in their lives, that God is using me, that God is using me. Such an honor to be used by Him.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. I once was bound, but now I'm free.
Hi, I'm Laverne Tripp, and welcome to Born to Be Free. Born to be free. Why do I say that every week or every episode? Because that's the title of the program, but that's not the only reason. No matter how messed up our life has become, no matter how addicted and messed up we get, God's destiny and God's purpose for us hasn't changed. The purpose we were born for was to be free. I'm going to be talking about that a little later in the program, and you're going to hear some other people sharing their thoughts on how, as they continue to improve their conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out, we find a freedom that we've never known. Because the reason we were born was to be free. Stay tuned.
I'm going to talk about probably what I think the most powerful principle in our maintaining and progressing with God.
All right.
And that is, how do we discover His will? And it says through prayer and meditation. Talk to me a little bit about how you crank up to find out God's will and God's purpose for your life. People just bug the stew out of me when they know what they're going to be doing 10 years from now. I'm clueless because God's will may not change, but my understanding of His will may.
Yes.
How do you go about discerning that will? How do you pray? How do you meditate? Give some practical help for those who may be watching.
A lot of people come to me and they say, well, I don't know if I'm in the will of God. I said, just make sure you ain't in your own will. See, even when I'm in doubt as perhaps to what God's will for me is, I know there's certain things that's not in His will. He doesn't want me gambling, He don't want me drinking, He don't want me having extramarital sex, He don't want me snorting any cocaine or drinking booze. That's pretty self-evident. And so even when I am uncertain, I keep reading the scriptures, I keep praying, and I keep waiting to see if He's going to bless, you know.
God's will for my life has always been, in some ways, always been something I've sort of had a sensitive spirit to. But in other ways, you know, I've gone far from it. But the thing that's interesting to me, and I'm sure I'll figure it out later after several more years, but when I was in Bible college struggling with disordered eating for the very first time, I woke up in the middle of the night with this vision of talking to people about this issue. Now that's crazy. I mean, it sounds crazy. It was, for the next 10 years, I did nothing. I forgot about that for a lot of those years. And then it's like He orchestrated my life, and as I came back and gave Him the ownership of my life and the ownership of that area, He revived that vision. And yet it was there even before that night at college. It was there before I was formed. You know, in Psalms, I can't remember exactly the verse, but where He's talking about, I formed you in your mother's womb, and then I knew your days even before you were even born. He knew it all the way back then. I think that one of the ways that I try and stay in tune with that, I mean, like now I know that piece of it, right? But the way I stay in tune with it step by step is I try to get out of the way, because I know that He's gifted me in certain ways that would make it easy for me to force doors open. And if I do that, I inevitably end up out of His will. And so now my approach is very often, okay, I know I could push this door open, but Lord, if you want me to go through this, I'm going to stand back. And that's not to say I'm not going to be responsible, because you can't just, oh, God, just open everything for me. But if it's something that I know I could sort of selfishly want to pursue, then I'll purposely step back and say, if this is your will, then you're going to open that door, because then I'm going to know that it's not me that's making it happen. Because if it is, inevitably, I'm unhappy, even when I get it, but because it wasn't His perfect will.
I focused on the gifts that God had given me. There were some things that are in me that are just inborn, and I don't know where they came from or why they're there, except that they're God-given. And I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know God's will for my life. I specifically prayed for a vision from God and for His purpose in my life. And I named that thing. I said, God, there's something that you want me to do. And I prayed about it. And again, then you have to be quiet to hear Him. And confirmation can come through meditation, but it can also come through His Word, the reading of His Word. It can come across the pulpit, and it can also come through interaction with other human beings, that God can answer you. But you have to be in tune to the Holy Spirit, and that does require much prayer, much meditation. You have to be open to receive from Him. And He did give me my vision, and it was interesting because I throw it around haphazardly, but God spoke to me and told me that my first ministry was my daughter. And He said, because of my responsibility to her, my stewardship over her, His child, that He would take care of my needs in meeting hers. And He specifically addressed some gifts and some desires that I had, because God just loves me so much, you know. And even where I didn't understand it or didn't see it, and it's not come to fruition yet, that I can trust Him for that, because I did stay in prayer, and it was confirmed through my pastors and through the Word, and it wasn't taken haphazardly. It does require listening for an answer, basically. I never aspired to be a drug addict. I always thought I'd be a millionaire by 21, you know. I knew exactly how I was going to attain that. I really did. I wanted to be a chef, and I wanted to be a writer, and I had dreams and aspirations. And and looking back in hindsight, I understand that because some of those behaviors were not arrested at that time, they snowballed quietly. It was very subtle. That's the most dangerous thing about addiction. Nobody wakes up in the morning. Rarely anyone wakes up in the morning and decides to shoot up that day. That it's a gradual progression from the use of different, not only drugs and alcohol, but different behaviors that lead you to use certain drugs and alcohols. And addiction's addiction. It may not be drugs and alcohol. Again, I bring in the sexual addiction. And it was subtle. It was very subtle. At the same and the back of my mind, I always had my dreams. I never let go of them. And I saw myself going from this path to this path. But I never thought that I'd end up as one of those people. You know, as rude as that is, that's how I thought. I would never be one of those people. They must be weak. There must be something weak in their personality to help them, to make them lose control. But that was not me. It would not be. And the worst part of my addiction, to even think back on what I had hoped to be, was unbearable. It was unbearable. It was a large part of the cycle of me using drugs and alcohol. I entered into treatment in my 30s. I had been addicted to alcohol and drugs since I was 7 years old, and I had begun to use it then. It's a lot of years. It takes more than a few weeks, and it took more than just a secular program, but I needed God in my heart and my life. It's phenomenal how prayer has changed my life, how I've become more in tune to God and the things of God. Through prayer and asking Him for His will for my life, He's answered me. And He's answered me through relationships with people in the community. He's answered me specifically through His Word. And it blew my mind in Peniel. That's where I first experienced it. And I'd be praying about a specific situation, and I'd go to a chapel service, and God would answer it. And my prayer life began with a commitment to for 5 minutes a day. Or I wouldn't begin my day without speaking to Him. And I wouldn't end my day without speaking to Him. And as I'm growing as a Christian, I find that it's more than a duty or a commitment. There's a need and a want, a desire to meet Him in prayer. Today's success is peace. It's the peace that surpasses all understanding, the ability to succeed in life through Christ, and not being just overly spiritual, but that I know that He's there. Success is a healthy relationship with my daughter, that I'm in tune to her needs, to her weaknesses and her strengths, that it's a full-time job, and that God has blessed me with that responsibility. He's her child first. It's an honor. Success is my daughter in my life. Success is relationships that I have with my family, that I no longer go with my hand out, that I'm able to actually meet needs in their lives, that God is using me, that God is using me. Such an honor to be used by Him. I'm very successful today. I'm very successful today. And money couldn't do it for me. Power can't do it for me. Relationships can't do it for me. God has done that for me. And in serving Him and being with Him, everything else is overflow from that. And it amazes me how He continues to bless me. How through that relationship with Him, that I'm prospering, that I'm healthy now. You know, I'd used drugs to the point where my hair was falling out, and you know, emotionally and physically, my body was spent. I'm healthy now, and there's no need. I can deal with a cold without picking up a pill. You know, I'm in control of things through Christ, and I'm successful. Yes, I am.
Do you know what God's will is for your life? Do you pray? Do you meditate? Could it be that that's the reason that we don't know His will? First of all, I don't think it's as complicated as we try to make it. I've searched the Scriptures and I have found out what God's will is. All my life I wondered, what's your will for me? What do you want me to do? It's very clear. In the Scripture, God said, it is my will that you believe on the one that I sent, on my Son, the Son that I sent to this earth. It's my will you believe on Him. Okay, I believe on Him. Now what do you want? God's not a hard taskmaster. He's a loving God. He wants you to enjoy life. He wants you to have peace. How do you find that? Through prayer and meditation. What is prayer? Is it just me expressing all the things I want? That's what usually prayer is. God bless me, bless my wife, bless my children, bless my grandchildren. God give me this, God give me that, God help me with this, God help me with that. We're so selfish and self-centered that most of our prayers are about us. God wants us to reach out to others. Why don't we start praying and meditating this way? God, how can I help somebody else? How can you use me? Is there some way you can use me? Is there someone in my community? Is there someone on the job? Is there someone that's hurting? Please show me what you want me to do and give me the power to do it. God wants us to reach out to other people. We're so selfish and self-centered. All we care about is me, me, me. I'm in love with me, me, me. No one else can. I see no one else but me, me, me. God help us to get rid of that selfish praying, selfish meditation, selfish, self-centered fulfillment and satisfaction, and start trying to help others. If we seek through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, we're going to come to know a power that is greater than anything we have ever dreamed of or thought of. God says He is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than we're able to ask or think. How? According to the power that's working within us. So if we'll begin to line up our thoughts and our prayers according to God's plan and will, and that is helping others, then we'll know a power we've never had, never dreamed of, and never saw. He said, if you walk in the light as I am in the light, the pathway will be clear, and you'll know exactly what I want you to do, one day at a time, one step at a time. So do it.
Well, I always just talk prayer when we talk. It's when we talk to God, and meditation is when He talks to us. Is that right?
Well, partially. Prayer is a conversation.
Yeah.
If you have a monologue, God is not going to talk back to you. He's not going to interrupt you.
Yes.
So there needs to be a time in that prayer that you just keep quiet and say, okay, God, talk to me. You know, I've made myself very clear. Now talk to me about where you are.
And the Bible says there's counsel and many, you know, there's wisdom in the counsel of many.
Yes.
And you got to write the vision down.
Yep.
God will give you a vision. He speaks to us in many ways. He speaks to us through that little still voice. And then sometimes He'll give you a vision or a dream. And like you said, He used prophets and prophetess, and they'll speak to you. And sometimes, you know, everything they tell you might not be from the Lord. So you got to make sure that it's from God. You have to have enough discernment in you to know that what this person is telling you is from the Lord thy God. Because some people will come and tell you anything.
Well,
And
but I feel like I have to shut up before God's going to come talk to me. Or at least, no, he's talking to me, but I just ain't listening.
Can't hear him.
You know, I got to turn the television off, turn the radio off, turn the stereo off, turn the earphones off. You know, you the whole 9 yards. Stop being and get away somewhere where I can be quiet and still.
here.
And just shut up. And every time that I'm able to do that, and I don't do it enough. In fact, I don't about once a month. All I'm doing it now, and that's pitifully low. But I get the message. God talks to me, you know, and at least that's in my life, and it's maybe different from others in my life.
He's given us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
That's
That's
right.
the first one.
I don't think that's accidental, guys.
No, I don't either. No.
Joe?
I find I need to do what God has already made clear I'm supposed to do. There's the general will of God for all people. God wills that all people be saved, first of all.
Yes.
All Christians are called to some very specific things, to love God, to love our neighbor, to serve the body of Christ, and so forth.
You mean we don't have to ask Him about those?
That's the point, exactly. I mean, I have to start with what God has clearly revealed in His Word, in general for believers, and then more specifically for men, for husbands, for fathers. And I really find right there I've got my hands full, just conforming to what He's already told me I'm to be in His Word. Now, when it gets to the specific and unique will of God for Joe Dallas, if those other things are in place first, I'm in a much better sense to get a clear idea of what that is. And for me, GOP works well, not to be political. Gifts, opportunity, passion. What has God equipped me to do? That tells me something about what He intends me to do. If He equipped me for it, I assume He intends me to do it. Opportunity, there does need to be the opportunity to do it, of course. And passion. I think so often people are overlooking a very deep passion they have that might have been burning for decades. I think a lot of people are missing out on life by ignoring their passion, and they're not really daring to believe that what's been burning on their heart to do may be the very thing God is wanting them to do. And so I think if we first have what God has clearly revealed in place, then I think we really ought to give attention to what He's equipped us to do, what there is opportunity to do, and what's the passion of our heart.
Absolutely. That passion is God-given.
Yes.
Right.
Now, the prayer is the power to do it. A guy was giving a seminar on God's will. 2 questions. How many of you want to know God's will? Everybody raised their hands. Second question. Once you know God's will you do it? A lot fewer hands went up. He says the conclusion is simple. Those of you who raised your hands once will never know God's will. Those of you who raised your hands twice will know God's will and will do it with passion. God never reveals His will, so you'll have another option.
Interesting. A lot of times God may have a plan for us, but it's not for tomorrow.
That's right.
And I think that sometimes we lose heart. And as the years go by and we think, well, that was a passion, that was a gift, that was a dream, I felt called to that. I would just love to encourage all of us out there that sometimes He's got to take you through all of these menial seeming things to get to where you are the vessel He needs to use for then that passion, that gift, and that opportunity, and not to lose hope that He will get you there if you will just stick to what He's leading you through and trust that that you're going to get there.
I basically lived to get high. All these good things that I was blessed by with God, I used them for bad. Yeah, Roy's a nice guy. Yeah, I'm a nice guy. Until you get between heroin and Roy, then he's not a nice guy. I got stabbed in the face, shot at, overdosed, steal anything, living in abandoned houses, prostituting women, robbing people, the whole lifestyle, the whole streets. You know how bad it got? It got to the point staying in crack houses, smoking crack, shooting heroin, running with girls that were turning tricks to get more money, to do more dope. And it was just total out of control. I wanted to find a way to use successfully. You know, I wanted to be able to do the wrong thing the right way. You know, and my big thing was I couldn't understand why I couldn't have a beer and be like, say, my father that can have a beer and stop. I couldn't stop. I never had enough. I needed one more or whatever it was. And that went on, you know, with the methadone, with the women. I was always searching for something that was going to make me happy, and I was searching in all the wrong places. I was searching, if I had one more shot of heroin, I'd be happy. If I had one more hit of crack, I'd be happy. No matter what I tried, not that I didn't want to stop, I didn't know how to stop. I found God in jail 100 times and left him there too, only to walk out and leave him there. Until this last time, when it was this, you know, that was it. And after walking in and out of prison so many times, and it seemed like God was right there saying, are you done yet? Are you going to do it my way? Until finally the last time, he said, what are you going to do now? And I said, whatever you want me to do. I'm done. And that was it. The inner peace came. I don't worry. Fear's a lack of faith. I don't fear nothing. And I just go along. That's it. Because I ain't staying clean on my own. If this was me doing this, I'd have screwed this up. Even the probation officer said, we had you pegged to be back in jail or using by now. They're trying to think, they actually look at me and think, he's doing something. We know him. He's doing something. We just didn't catch him yet. And I told the guy, I said, well, you think I found a way to control it now? After 40 years, you actually think that I can control it now? I can hide it from you? I never hid nothing from nobody. When I got high, you knew I was getting high. I changed my mind about a lot of things. And one of them is using drugs and alcohol. I won't do it, you know? And as long as I don't do that, and I pray every day, it's all good.
Well, we've been listening and watching people that have shared with us how they have worked at improving their conscious contact with God by prayer and meditation and seeking for knowledge of His will for their life and the power to carry it out. You know, sometimes we feel like that maybe God will use other people, but He won't use me. He doesn't really have a plan for me. I'm just here, but I don't really have a purpose. That's not true. You have a fingerprint that no one in the world has ever had. You have a voice pattern that no one's ever had. And you have a DNA no one's ever had. Why? Because the master designer, the master builder, the master creator, God designed you for a specific purpose. The only thing we have to do is seek Him to find that purpose. He's not trying to hide it from us. The reason we don't know what His purpose is because we've been doing what we want to do and asking God to help us. Now, why don't we change that and spend our energy and our efforts and our thoughts and our prayers in saying, God, what do you want me to do? Because if we will line up with His plan, then we will live a life that is fulfilled, because that is a purposeful life. So let's pray. Ask God to help us. We can't do it by ourselves. So let's pray together right now. Father, I ask you to help us and give us knowledge of your will for our life and give us the power to carry it out. I only want to do your will, not mine. That's what each one of us want. We must have your help. We've asked for it, and by faith we believe we've received it. The victory's yours. Walk in it.
Have you been inspired to start your journey to recovery? Please call our toll-free number, 888-665-4483, and our prayer partners can help you find a group in your area. Or you can visit our website at www.ctvn.org and click on the Born to Be Free link. There you can search our online database of recovery groups near you. When you call or visit our website, request your free copy of the self-help booklet, Your Dynamic Journey to Freedom. In it, you'll find an outline of the recovery process featured in this series. So take that first step on your journey to freedom by contacting us, finding a local recovery group, and getting your free copy of this inspiring booklet. Call now, because you were born to be free.
Perhaps there are more people within the church struggling with these problems than even I realized. I had never dreamed that my own experience might be something anybody else could relate to, and I was wrong.
I gotta tell them there is no other kind of solution but Jesus Christ. That's the only one that changed my life. So I tell them, hey, Jesus could do the difference in your life, because it's my responsibility.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. I once was bound, but now I'm free.
When I was dealing with the drugs and the alcohol, I could not stop. Even though I wanted to stop, I couldn't find a way to stop. So what they had to do is I had to get eliminated from society. You know, a lot of people, maybe they don't have to go to the extremes that I went to. Maybe some people listen. Roy didn't listen. So yeah, I had to get pounded, like a lot. Like consequences on top of consequences on top of consequences, until all the straws come, and then the final straw come in, and then I said, I'm done. If you put $1 on me to make it in Las Vegas 20 years ago, you'd be a millionaire today, because there was no chance I was going to make it. I'd have been dead. And I give up on myself a lot of times, but I don't believe he ever gave up on me, or I wouldn't be sitting here. He must like me.